Do you have any experience with writing systems or ancient languages?
Ancient languages, not really, but writing system, you mean like any language, or
Yeah,
like the Chinese?
exactly, yeah.
Yes, I've been studying Chinese a while ago, and it's a fascinating world. Like just to learning the script is just a different
Yeah,
a whole story on its own, like besides the language itself is just completely whole new world. And after that, I've been doing some Japanese, so I can relate the
okay.
original Chinese. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, very good, very good. Then I suggest that you grab yourself a piece of paper and a pen, because this is like a little workshop. So might be a good idea if you can write something, because we will be actually doing a decipherment. First, I will be talking, and I will be talking about the different writing systems and how writing developed, where it originated, where it came from. And we will then visit different places and see different archaeological finds that were discovered in these places. And we will go to all these places that I've marked here on the map. So we will decipher something from Uppsala in Sweden. That's where I'm currently. And we will also see something from Rome and from Mesopotamia mostly. This region, this is where writing was developed, the very first writing system. And we will also go to India and to Easter Islands in the end. So let's first look at this. This is this round clay tablet. It's called a Phaistos disc, and it comes from Crete. It was discovered on the island of Crete not a long time ago, but it was created in the second millennium before Christ. And until today, we could not decipher it. We don't know what it is, but we think that it is a text. And when we want to decipher something that we don't know, the first thing we do is, of course, we decide, is it a language or is it not a language? And or is it just maybe an ornament and has nothing to do with living language? So if we look at this piece, we of course cannot be sure that it is language, but it does seem like it is language because the symbols are very elaborate and because they repeat. So if you can see, this symbol, for example, repeats again. And in ornaments, you maybe wouldn't repeat one symbol, or this one repeats quite often. So when you realize that some symbols repeat, to think about what kind of writing system it is, or it could be, if it is an alphabet like a Latin script, or if it is a symbolic system like Chinese, where you have very many different symbols. What you do is you count each individual symbol. You count how many individual symbols there are. And it is, if you compare all existing writing systems in the world, then it is usually the case that if you have an alphabet, you have between 25 or 20, 30 signs, individual signs. And if it is a system like Chinese, where you have one symbol representing one concept, then you will have at least 400 signs or even more. So with this system that you can see here, we have quite a few individual signs, but because we only have this disk and no other examples of this writing system, we cannot actually make any conclusions about it, and we cannot decipher it. This here is a Sumerian clay tablet, and it was it comes from Mesopotamia, and it was created 3000 before Christ, approximately, of course. All these dates, we cannot be sure. It was discovered in the 19th century by archaeologists. It was buried under lots of earth, and we discovered it. And it took a while to decipher this writing system. And when something you do when you just try to decipher something, you analyze it very precisely. So at first you look at it and you don't understand at all. But when you look more and look precisely, then you start understanding it. And well, maybe you try to guess, what do you see? Just describe, what do you see here?
I just see some lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, one. There's another one, like shape of the top one, the top right. It's interesting. Those like holes and
Yeah.
like if it was a nose or something. And yeah,
You're right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so those holes, they are actually numbers. This is this tablet. So here's an explanation. This tablet is like a modern, an ancient version of a receipt. You know, when you go and buy something, and you get the receipt. So this is like an ancient one, and this receipt is about a worker doing work, having done work, and in the past, workers were paid with beer, and beer was not as alcoholic as it is nowadays, and it was healthier than water, because water could contain some poisonous things, but beer was healthier and probably tastier than water. So what you see here, those vessels, you see those pot kind of things. They look like a bit like a vase. So those are beer vessels, and here's it's a bit broken, but you can see the bowl. It's a person eating, and you can see a person here as well, and you recognize this head. It's here as well. That a bit is broken off. And these holes here and the half moon shaped, pressed in the clay. These were ancient numbers. So this is how you read it, how to interpret it. So this was an ancient system, and it developed further into something that looks like this, much more complicated. And this system, it works in the same way as Chinese works. So you can write syllables with it, but you can also write a whole concept. And this was much later. So you can see from 550 BCE, this is almost more than 2000 years away from this previous system. And with this system, you couldn't write whatever you wanted. You could only write, the concepts, beer and numbers and objects and persons, but you could not write whatever you want. For example, like verbs and other words. It was impossible. With this system, you could write anything you would want. And there are very, very many symbols, and it's very hard to learn because in Chinese you would memorize certain patterns, but with this one, if you look closely, it just consists actually of two symbols. Oh, this is not getting displayed, I'm sorry. So if you look inside, it's just like lines, and they can be horizontal or vertical. You see here quite a few vertical lines, and here some vertical lines, and here are some horizontal lines. So some symbols are very simple, but some, like this one, it's very complicated with, here's a vertical line, here's a horizontal line, but there are also diagonal lines, and it's very hard to memorize such symbols. So a scribe in the past, the person who could write, had to learn for very, very many years, similar to, to the Chinese system.
Mm.
And this system was spread all around Turkey and Iran and everywhere in Mesopotamia, and different languages were written with it. So what we saw, the two examples before, we saw it was Sumerian language. It is the first written language, the first language that we know of. And Babylonian language was, this is here. This is written in Babylonian language. And another language that
was spoken in around Iraq, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And Hittite language. This is a like a stamp of an ancient ruler. It's made out of metal, and there was a handle at the back that you cannot see here, but you would hold it like this, and you can stamp it in a clay tablet, and you can make an impression of this. And here is the ruler, the owner of this stamp. And here is this writing system, the cuneiform writing system. And the Hittite language was written with it. Hittite language, I don't know if you ever heard about it. It died out a long time ago.
It's from where, in the Turkey area? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an Indo-European language. And most of the stuff that was written in Hittite is written on clay tablets. But some objects were also made of metal, like this one. And actually on this one, we don't have just Hittite language on the outer side. There is another writing system inside of this seal. Those symbols here on the right and on the left of the person, that's also a writing system. And these are hieroglyphs. So you probably heard of Egyptian hieroglyphs, but
sure.
there are also there's another system of hieroglyphs that was in use in Turkey, and that was used for writing Luwian language. And here is the same seal. It's just drawn by hand so that it is easier to see. And a funny thing about this seal, that whoever made it, whoever forged the seal, made a little mistake. So if you look at those symbols on the left and on the right, they are the same. It's a copy. So the same, it's the name of the ruler of this person here in the middle, written with the hieroglyphic system. And you could write it in both directions. But if you would change the direction of writing, you would mirror the image of each hieroglyph. So you can see this symbol is symmetrical. You cannot mirror it, but this one is the other way around here on the right side. And this one is also mirrored. These two are also symmetrical, so you cannot mirror them. But there is a mistake, because this one has not been mirrored. It should have been, but it was not. So it is a little mistake here. And here are all of the symbols that here this system of hieroglyphs uses. So it's quite hard work and takes a lot of time to learn each symbol. And some of the symbols could also have multiple meanings. So I could not list all the meanings here, but just to get an impression, some of them are quite obvious. This cow head, you can recognize that here are feet and hands, and there's a person. So the very first symbol, person pointing at itself, this is the word for, this is the symbol for eye. Actually very similar in Egyptian hieroglyphs, but they were independent. So it's not that, one originated from the other. Another probably hieroglyphic system, but we don't know for sure, was used in India, in the Indus Valley. Indus Valley was one of the 4 places where early civilizations started on Earth that we know of. and they also had their own writing system. So those symbols you can see here above, but we still didn't decipher it. So we still didn't know, even though we have lots and lots and lots of these, that it was very popular to make them. And we don't know what they are exactly. Maybe they were some kind of stamps, or maybe they were some kind of amulets. We don't know. And you could also press them into something soft and get the impression of it. So like you see here, this is the stone, soapstone. It's a soft kind of stone that you can easily modify with simple, with some simple tool. And if you press it in something wet, you can get a copy of it. So many of these, hundreds of these were found, and we don't know what is written on them. And it doesn't happen too often. So here's another example of such a seal. Is a different animal. They all kind of look similar, with some kind of fantastical creatures based on existing animals. And some of them have some kind of totem-like symbols. That's why some researchers think that it could be religious symbols. And there's always an inscription at the top. And the problem is why we cannot decipher them. It's because the inscriptions are very short. And if the inscriptions are so short, it is very likely that it's just names of persons and not actual sentences. So if you only have such short inscriptions, and especially if it's just names, you cannot compare it with anything. When you want to decipher something, you need some kind of comparison. So either another language that you can already read, or a lot of sentences that you can compare with each other. And if you'd like to look at more pictures and to find out more about the Indus Valley culture, this is a really nice website, harappa.com. And there are many slides and presentations and videos also, and books. It's very informative. So if you look at this and take a guess, what is this? Does it remind you of anything?
This is the Egypt as like the
right.
Cleopatra.
Right, it looks Egyptian. So when, but it's not. It's actually, it does look Egyptian, but it was made in Rome approximately in the 1st century. And the problem with this one, so there was a person living in Europe who was trying to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphs. And he used this tablet as the basis for his decipherment. And there are lots of symbols here on the side, here in the middle, and here down. Egyptian hieroglyphs could be written in any direction, so you can write them horizontally or vertically, it didn't matter. And this person was trying to use this tablet, but the problem is all these symbols, they look like Egyptian symbols, but they're not. It's just a forgery. It's a fake. Somebody made it, and we don't know why this was made. And later, after Egyptian hieroglyphs got deciphered, actually, this got compared to the correct version of decipherment. And people realized that this is just, it's garbage. This has nothing to do with the Egyptian hieroglyphs. But something like that can also happen. And this is just a funny story of decipherment. And what this person based his decipherment on just could not have been correct, because the symbols are all wrong. Here is another description from ancient Persia. It was created approximately 500 BC, and it could be deciphered because the same text is a huge text. It's written here in 3 different languages. It is written in not only in Old Persian, but also in Elamite and Babylonian. And it is the same text. And because we could decipher one language before, we could also decipher another language. And this writing system, the Old Persian writing system, it looks like the cuneiform writing that we've seen before, but it works in a different way. There are considerably less symbols, and it was used for monumental inscriptions like this one, praising, important people. This inscription praises Darius, the great king of Persia, and it was carved on a mountain approximately 100 meters in the air on an important trading route. So many people who passed this place, merchants or other kings, they could see this, and it had this symbolic nature to it. And here's the writing system. So now let's try to write your name or my name with this writing system. And I will explain to you why this system is not so good. So you can see there are some symbols that stand for just vowels, and some symbols that stand for syllables. So if you would want to write my name or your name, you immediately see there is no way of writing Olga or Eric because there is no vowel for O or E. So this is already the first problem. This was not such a big problem for Persians because they didn't have an O in their language. So that was...
And yeah, I know, like Arabic. Same.
Exactly. So this was not a problem. But if we go on and try to write your name, we would need a ri. And if you look, here's the r. There is only a syllable for ra and ru, but there is no ri.
Are they making it complicated? Oh, yeah.
So the problem is that if you would want to write a ri with this system, you would first have to write ra and then put an e. So if we would want to write your name, you would, instead of e, they would write a, e. And instead of ri, they would write ra, e. And
so I, e.
Exactly. So I, rai, and we still need a k to complete the whole name. So you would put a ka, but there was no way to delete the vowel.
So it would sound like Erica. Why Erica?
Yeah. Exactly. So to write your name, you need a, I, ra, I, ka. To write my name, you would do it in Old Persian with a, u, la, and ga. So I would be not Olga, but Aulaga, and you would be not Eric, but Ayraika. And this is, you see how strange the system is. And the Persian language didn't have an O and an E, so that was not a problem. But they were also writing, they were communicating and trading with Greek people, with ancient Greece. And when they would write, an ancient Greek had O, for example, as a vowel, and if they would write ancient Greek names, they're just so strange. They're almost impossible to recognize. And if you compare all the symbols here, you will see that for the letter for syllables with the vowel a, there is every consonant. There is ka, xa, ga, cha, ja, da, ta, tha, and so on. But for I and U, there is considerably less. For U, we have, for example, ku and gu, but we don't have Xu. And for E, we don't even have Ki and Gi. So it just, they hurried up creating this writing system, and it was never completed. But for example, for the, you have da, di, du. You have all three. But you only have that for de and for me. Ma, mi, mu you also have, but the rest is not complete. So it's really ridiculous. So the next one we will look at, this is a runic inscription that's here in Uppsala. And it was created by Vikings. They would use this as mostly as gravestones. They would put it for, you know, for their relatives when they died. But some of the rune stones were also created for commemorating something. If somebody was particularly proud of even himself, they could make such a stone and put it somewhere. And here the text goes, so this is quite a typical rune stone, but it's a particularly beautiful one. It's a late one. They were created between approximately 800 and 1100 AD. And this inscription, it begins here. It's a little bit broken at the beginning, and then it goes like this, like a number 8, a little bit, and then it goes around, and then it finishes here. That's the last letter. And what is typical, I know there is actually an signature of a person who made this stone at the bottom. So this is the last thing you read. And what is typical about this inscription is this kind of snake here. So they very often put snakes as symbols of otherness and otherworldliness. And this snake is biting its tail, which was also quite typical for such inscriptions. And there is a Christian cross here, which is also normal for these inscriptions. And I took some of the words, those 3, and I put here the alphabet, the runic alphabet, so you can try to decipher 3 words from this inscription. And you will notice that the symbols, they are, at first they don't look familiar at all if you just look like this. But when you start copying and writing them, you will notice that there are quite a few similarities with the Latin script.
B.
Yeah.
BRT.
Yeah.
But that's T and R.
Yeah.
Yeah, the middle ones are very hard to.
Yeah, the middle ones are very hard. Yeah. So the first one is an A. So here are they, both of them, and they're just a mirrored image of them. So what do you have in the first word? How do you read it?
Prater.
Yeah. And the second one?
Steel.
Correct. Steen. And the last one?
The first letter was that G? Maybe no.
No, the first is here. The first, also, it's the first letter of this alphabet. It's an F.
Oh, okay, F. Oh, I didn't see like. And that's Fa. Fa.
Yeah. Does that remind you of anything?
The first one or the first
Any
one?
of these words?
Branter.
Branter is the most difficult one. But steen and father, if you consider the fact that it comes from this gravestone.
Steen is stone.
Correct. Well done. And what could father be?
This is like German one, Stein.
Yeah, correct.
And
Exactly.
the third one, figure. Oh.
It's the word for father. It's much easier. So so here is the stone again. And if you want to look at more of such stones, you can go to this website, runedata.info, and you can look at the texts of these stones and you can see exactly where they are located. So if you happen to be once in Scandinavia, it's quite interesting because you can just walk around and they are, so this one is located in the city center next to the dome. And there are very many just located, you know, in the wilderness. And if you just go to the forest or if you just walk around, then you can find them. They are scattered around. And here's the whole inscription. I put it together and also with a translation. So Arn, we don't know, something is broken there, but it's probably Bjarn, Swedish name. Uk is end, and Branter is something we deciphered. Branter is also a personal name. So those two persons, they are the ones who made the stone. They told someone to make it. And the next line reads as Litu risa steen at, and Litu is let, and risa is raise. Steen, we deciphered that one. So they let raise stone. This is not mentioned. Let raise stone for Karluk Fadur Sin, and Sin is related to German sein or seine if you speak German. So it's a pronoun. In Kitilbjörn at Brasur, and for Ketilbjörn, brother there. And Brasur is also looks very, very easy to recognize. And then at the bottom, when I told you that this is like a signature, this was not so typical, but Uvir was a famous person who carved many of such stones, and he made particularly beautiful stones. So he put like a signature that he was responsible for carving this stone. And the alphabet, the runic alphabet, it's, you know, it was quite popularized by culture because of the Vikings, and it was used in many different movies. So one thing that you can know about it, there were very many different versions, and here are the different versions. There was the older version of Germanic runes, and it's much longer with very many different symbols. For example, you have an O there. You don't have an O in this version, in the last one. Oh no, actually, sorry, you have an O, but what was the E, for example? E is in this version, it is there, but it's not in the later versions. And the younger version, so that's the one that we just looked at, the younger rune row, it was used a bit later in history. And there were the normal runes and the short ones, so they were kind of shortened, because if you imagine that you have to carve them in the stone, it takes a long time to carve something into a stone. So they tried to make them less, less to make less of a work. And to make even less work, at some point they removed the middle part, the stave, and they had a very, very short kind of system of writing. And there were also some later versions, the medieval runes, and in England, Anglo-Saxon runes were used, which were also different, and it's the longest alphabet of runes.
Yeah. Interesting. The rune alphabet. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
right.
pretty cool and popular.
And you can learn it very fast.
Yeah, it looks like it's easy. Yeah, exactly. And the words itself that this remains, because I speak some Danish as well, or in
Yeah.
Scandinavian language, so it looks I can recognize some words there and the grammatical function like at in order to, or even for, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, the language, this language, it's called Old Norse.
Yeah, and so they use that script, Old Norse, they use runic.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of the inscriptions are very short. So if you go to this website, runedata.info, you can. This map is from that website. You can just click on some of the inscriptions, and there is a text directly in the translation. And most of the inscriptions are very short. So this is normal, and they are very similar. You know what it says. And here's where you can find them in the world. So if you live in Europe, in Northern Europe especially, you can just walk around and find them. Most of them are in Scandinavia, but there are some in Greenland, and there are even some in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Vikings. The Vikings were trading. They were trading, and their trade route went all the way down here, through the Baltic states, through Ukraine, and all the way to Istanbul.
So the Vikings, in their many ways, like a Visigoth, there's the Visigoth that they arrived into Spain, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And here you can see this is a little bit zoomed in. So there are two inscriptions here and one in Greece, and there are some in Ukraine. And I'm not sure about this in Italy. I haven't looked at it. But most of them are located like here where I am now. I'm right now here where this 474 number is in Uppsala in Sweden. And you can... And sorry?
Are you Swedish? So you're from there?
No, I'm from Ukraine originally, but I'm here now for half a year. I'm just living here. I'm here on the Erasmus program. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm in Australia now, but okay, it's a bit far.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah. Uppsala.
Yeah. So another alphabet that I really like, it's used for writing a language on Vanuatu, which is not that far from you as it is from me.
I know.
And this is a really cool script that I found not a long time ago. And the symbols, they are very many of them are symmetrical, and they were inspired. They were just created. The script is not ancient. It was inspired by ancient sand art from Vanuatu, but the writing system was developed in the 90s. And it was for a long time in development, and it's actually a very cool writing system. But unfortunately, the person who created it, he doesn't want Unicode people to encode it, and he wants to like have control over the system and who uses it. And yeah, I wanted to write a proposal so that people encode it and so that you can type it with computer, but it is, for some reason, they don't want it.
Yeah.
And the last writing system, also from the Pacific, and also undeciphered. You can see it here, the symbols. this is from the Easter Island. I don't know if you heard about the Easter Island. It's one of the most remote places in the world, and they found 24 different wooden objects with these symbols on them. And it is still undeciphered. We don't know what it says, but the inscriptions are a bit longer, and there are 24 of them. And this is a shorter one. There are really long inscriptions. So there is some chance that we will find out one day what it says.
It looks like a necklace.
It is a necklace. It is a necklace.
Yeah. And it's okay. And it's I need to write in at the same time, like it says something. So but it's not been live. No? Yeah.
It is a necklace. You put a string through these two holes, and this type of necklace is typical from Polynesian. Many cultures in Polynesia made such with those heads as well, but only 2 are known with language on them.
Mm. Oh wow.
Yeah, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. And if you have any questions or if you would like to know more, I offer like online courses about the different Indo-European languages. So you can write me an email. If you also want these slides, you can also write me an email. That's my email address.
I'm just writing it now.
Yeah, you can send me an email. I can send you the slides, or if you're interested in anything else about Indo-European languages, the ancient ones, or
okay, so Indo-Europeans. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like the runic one. I'm really interested in the runic script.
Yeah,
I find it like quite straightforward and the easiest of all. Yeah, that looks awesome, nice. So you can learn some more of the the background, historical background of the Scandinavian languages. So it's good. Yeah, thank you very much, Olga.
You're welcome, Eric. Thank you.